Welcome to The Fight on Matrix Midwest with Randy Carricker and company.
Hi kids, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us. That is Andrew, I'm Randy, and quite a show coming up. How far can the Billikens go this year?
Oh, I hope really far.
A few years ago, Loyola went to the Final Four.
That they did.
Do the Olympics need to change their hockey rules 4 years from now? And our friend Tamar Sher joins us to talk Cardinal spring training. But we'll get things started with our quick hits. And the Cardinals got off to a good start with their starting pitching in spring training. Matthew Liberatore goes 2 innings and struck out 4 in the opener, and then Kyle Leahy allowed just a solo homer and struck out 3 in his 2 innings. Liberatore, Michael McGreevy, and Dustin May are locks for the rotation. Then you have a group that includes Leahy, Andre Palante, who'll still get an opportunity, and Richard Fitz, along with Hunter Dobbins, who's injured at the outset of camp, but at some point in the season will be available. Seems like the way they're treating Leahy, though, Andrew, he has a job to lose. Is that a good thing?
I think so. I think you put everybody out there and you say, earn your spot in this rotation. And what I saw out of Kyle Leahy, he did, if we're basing it off of 3 innings that we saw, I thought he did enough to earn a spot still today, saying, hey, you could be the 4th or 5th guy. His sweeper looks fantastic. His fastball looks just as strong. We know the other pitches that he compiles in his arsenal. He's got about 4 or 5 other pitches he could throw to. This is a great position to be in if you're a young pitcher because you are striving for something, and Leahy, Dobbins, Fitz, like you said, are all guys competing to be a part of this 5.
You combine about 4 things. Number 1, the way he has performed at the major league level. Number 2, his repertoire. Number 3, the way he has started, not only in the finale last year against the Cubs, but the way he did in his first start of the spring. And then add into that the fact that the Cardinals have that need, and he's started before at the minor league level. I think it all adds up to Kyle Leahy getting a great opportunity to start for the Cardinals in 2026.
All you have to do is tell a competitor, hey, here's your opportunity. Go chase it. That's all a guy needs to hear to go that far and try to, secure his spot and maybe the long-term spot in the starting rotation.
Yeah. Bottom line, Yoshi Yamamoto got a $325 million contract. No reliever has ever gotten a $325 million contract. The gold medal winning USA hockey team won with fun and with class, and the way they remembered the late USA star Johnny Gaudreau brought tears to the eyes of many observers. After the USA won gold in 1980, we saw a proliferation of rinks and youth hockey in the country. Seems like with the expansion and the number of American cities that have NHL teams, and the Hughes brothers, for example, are from Orlando. Austin Matthews is from Scottsdale. Seems like the sport, like it has in St. Louis, could grow even more among the youngsters.
Especially here in St. Louis. And I say especially not only because we see St. Louis representation at the Olympics and in the NHL, and some of the best players are those kids that come out of St. Louis. But, even in reports, the South County Mall, right, is being teased to be turned into 2 ice rinks. Mm-hmm. Who would have thought that 2 ice rinks would be added here in the city after Centene was added and so forth? For years as a kid, and I have a lot of friends that grew up just going to Afton. Now there's so many other places for these teams to go play because the sport is growing so much.
And beyond that, we have really good players, really good coaching, and really good teams. Barrett Jackman's team, the U16 team, second in the nation right now, and they're traveling all over the place and they're doing a lot of winning. Andy McDonald's team, the U18 team, is doing great work, and there are multiple draft choices that are playing now. And when you're a young player, when you're 13, 14, and you can see a guy and know a guy that gets drafted in the first round of the NHL draft, you're going to be even more inclined to keep playing.
And not to say this happens all the time, but hockey is a sport where you relocate your family if you chase to be on the number 2 team in the country. Right? This is a family moving, and I'm not saying families do this all the time, but there are people that will come from Michigan, Minnesota, whatever, to come to St. Louis if it means having their son kind of rise the ranks to be the next great player.
And if you're a parent and you saw the interview with Jack Hughes on Sunday talking about the brotherhood of hockey, it really does strike a nerve with a lot of people. Speaking of Olympic hockey, there were a lot of comments and columns deriding the idea of 3-on-3 settling who won the gold medal. But is it really that bad? They took the shootout out of the equation. Hard to imagine NHL teams want their guys playing 2 or 3 overtimes, especially when you saw the injuries to Kevin Fiala and Sidney Crosby. If I'm an NHL team, I don't want my fatigued player getting injured because he's playing a 5-on-5 overtime, 3 or 4 overtimes for an Olympic gold medal. I know it's great for the players, but I think for most observers, and except for the old school fans, 3-on-3 to settle this is just fine.
I think it's great for the fans today too, because the game gets over faster. And I'm not somebody that wishes that upon my watching or viewing, because I love the sport. I would sit there and watch 2 more periods of hockey if that's what it called for. Not a lot of fans are like me though. They just want to see who wins at the end of the day, and you get so much action from 3-on-3. And notice who's saying this. It's Canadians, the Canadian coach, the Canadian players that are like, oh, 3-on-3. You guys had the best 3v3 lineup out there. McDavid, McKinnon, Makar. What are we talking about?
Yeah, there are some old school behind the times people in our country that are complaining about it too, but ultimately I think what you need to do is look at the way this thing is run. The closing ceremonies were about to get underway. They don't want a team still playing or 2 teams in the gold medal game while the closing ceremonies that aren't going to be moved are getting underway. And so I think they'll keep 3-on-3, and I loved what TJ Oshie did in Sochi, but that'll be a one-time thing.
Yeah, we don't have TJ Oshie anymore.
No, we don't. College basketball, St. Louis U will have their hands full again this week with a Tuesday date at Dayton. After knocking off the A-10 second-place team, VCU, over the weekend, the Bills face the 4th-place team in the conference. The Flyers, 18-9, 9-5 in the conference. Even at 25-2, these are important games for the Bills because a loss to Rhode Island last week seemed to place them close to the NCAA tournament bubble among a lot of observers. And I know Josh Schertz and his team, especially after the loss, they want to build up towards tournament time, and they know that they're better than everybody that they're playing.
And I think it's the response that stands out most to me. It's if you lose to VCU after losing to Rhode Island, now you're really starting to tread in those bubble waters more than you are, hey, you're the leader of the Big Ten, or the Atlantic 10, excuse me, and you're probably a team that is going to still be a 7 seed or an 8 seed come tournament time. Every team, not every team, there are a lot of teams in college basketball that have a bad loss. UConn lost to Creighton over the weekend, and Creighton is not a good basketball team this season. Arizona State beat Texas Tech. That was an unranked team against a top 10 team, or maybe top 13 at the time. There are teams that lose games, but it's all about that response, and SLU was able to do that against VCU.
And oh, by the way, SLU started that game. The first 9 minutes, they didn't have a 3-point shot. That is not going to happen. That's the first time this happened. That's happened all season. And this team is just too good of a shooting team to miss that many threes off the hop. So I think what we saw over the course of the last week, the anomaly that was Rhode Island, and then the first half that they had against VCU, it was a really good team, by the way. I think that was probably something that isn't going to happen again. Mizzou, meanwhile, is squarely on top of the bubble. 3 games left against Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and a home game against 20th-ranked Arkansas. ESPN's Joe Lunardi currently has Mizzou just in as a play-in team. That means they're number 65 through 68. But if the Tigers lose another game, especially because they'll play 2 games against unranked teams and a home game against their nearest competitor in the conference, seems like Mizzou could use some help heading into the SEC tournament.
And I think that placement is just right for this Tigers bunch. I would almost lean on them being more of a should be in than a should be out at this stage. Still, I know that you're probably going to have to do some damage in the SEC tournament, but how many teams are making the tournament out of the SEC? 10? 11?
11 at least.
And so if you're talking about 11 teams, Mizzou has to be that 11th team. If you're saying 10, now you have a conversation of, okay, are they better than Auburn? Are they better than Georgia? Both teams lost like 4 out of 5 games recently. Yes, Mizzou kind of falls into that same water, but if those 2 teams were excelling, then I would say Mizzou's on the outskirts. But if you're talking about 11 teams making it, Mizzou's in.
But Mizzou's at that point where if George Mason, for example, in the A-10 would steal a spot by winning the A-10 tournament and SLU is in, that could knock a team like Missouri out.
No, that's a great call. The small schools could really decide your fate. If you have an upset even in any of the small school conferences. I really like Cal State Northridge this year, and they're like the 4th best team in their conference. If they were to come out of it, then what do you do with that number 1 team that's probably in at-large bid territory?
Really simple equation for Dennis Gates and Mizzou, right? Just win.
Yeah, just win your quad 1 game.
Yeah,
quad 1s against Arkansas especially.
Win those last 3 games, and it wouldn't hurt you to win a tournament game either, and then you'll probably be in the tournament. Those are your quick hits here in the fight. And later in the show, we're going to have some risky business. We're going to put together a parlay. I don't know if I'm going back to table tennis, like I did in our last show, but we'll have some risky business. That was pretty risky. Maybe irresponsible business even.
We're a little bit like that sometimes.
Yeah, but coming up, friend of the show, Tamar Sher of First Alert 4 was down in spring training. She's back now, and we're going to get her thoughts on the Cardinals next in the fight. Hey, I want you to know that I have been through a cardiac episode before, and I'm fine. I feel great because of St. Luke's. I had my cardiac episode at St. Luke's. I was actually going through a stress test when I had it. My doctors have always been there, but I can't tell you what a great experience it was. Yeah, it's not a great experience to have bypass surgery, but to be that confident as I was in my surgeon and to go through the process of the surgery, the discharge, and then the rehab, St. Luke's does it right. If you guys have any thought at all that you might have a cardiac issue, I want you to visit my friends at St. Luke's. Whether it's tightness in your chest, whether it's a clicking in your heart, maybe it's a pain in your shoulder that is just unexplained, don't think to yourself like I did, yeah, it's just going to go away and I'm going to be fine. It just doesn't work that way when you have heart problems. Give my folks at St. Luke's a call and talk to one of their great cardiologists and make sure that you're okay. And if you're not, they will fix you and they'll make sure that you're great. Call 314-205-6801 or go to stlukes-stl.com. They pour their hearts into making sure that yours is healthy at St. Luke's. Good to have you with us in the fight. Andrew Rogers, Randy Carricker, and this is Tamar Sher from First Alert 4, friend of the show. Actually, kind of a show member. You're more than a friend. You're a show family member.
I was going to say, we got to, when you were gone, I got to hang out with you for a bit, but it's awesome to be back here, you guys. I love hanging out in the fight.
And back from Florida, and we want to talk about spring training. What was it like down there, Tamar, without Arenado and Contreras and Gray and Donovan? It's got to be a different vibe in the clubhouse.
Well, I do think that because now there is this pure vision of, okay, we are now in this rebuild process. You don't have any of those big contracts anymore. Now the young guys can go ahead and get their opportunities. Yes, they've already had big league experience, so it's not like Mason Wynn and Victor Scott haven't played a full season in the majors, because they have. But now there is this opportunity to say, hey, there aren't these guys. There isn't a Brendan Donovan anymore. There isn't a Nolan Arenado at the hot corner. So a guy like Nolan Gorman can now say, okay, this is my spot to lose because, and of course, we now are talking about an addition as well that happened after I returned home from spring training, and a veteran, Gold Glover at third base. But at the same time, I felt like this energy, this revived energy, and everyone was very optimistic. That was the word I chose to use.
I think a lot of people know by now that my guy is Victor Scott II. It was all last year that I was all over them. Okay, so he coined the phrase youngery, right? And then, like, I was hearing him say, like, they're even youngerier down in spring training. Who do you think kind of like fits that mold? Who looks even youngerier than they did last season?
Well, I think what's interesting is a lot of these guys actually had off-season surgeries. So you got a Mason Wynn who is coming off a Gold Glove year, but at the same time, offensively, he wasn't pleased. And he actually had a repair on his torn meniscus that he can now feel more comfortable in the batter's box. That was an interesting play. Ivan Herrera, he had to get a fix of his elbow to help him feel more confident throwing and be better at the catcher position. Lars Nootbaar now back at spring training, coming off that rehab of his double heel surgery. So when you talk about youngerier, I think right now these guys are like, okay, I had these corrective surgeries like a Mason Wynn. Now I can even elevate my game more because defensively is where he shined, but offensively he still has things he wants to do to improve on. So I would say those string of guys that were a little injured, banged up in the offseason, in rehab, now feel confident and comfortable heading into this season.
You talk to pretty much everybody down there. Among the young players, and they're all young players now, who seems to really be buying into the idea of this youth movement among the players? Did anybody strike you?
Well, we talked about a Mason Wynn and a Victor Scott, and I think those are two really obvious guys that when you turn to, okay, now there's a lot of young leadership in this clubhouse. You have a couple veteran arms that were added on the pitching side of things, but in terms of the infielders and outfielders, and you've got a lot of guys who understand and have bought into what the Cardinals way truly is. But at the same time, a guy like Mason Wynn and Victor Scott, guys who have this energy and this poise about them, can really energize this clubhouse. You also talk about a J.J. Weatherholt, and that's the guy Ozzie Smith told me he was way excited to see. He's like, I asked him, who's the person you're most excited to see? He said J.J. Weatherholt. I think everyone's just excited to see what he can do, and that second base position. It's kind of his spot to lose at this point too, because of what they were able to see from him.
And Randy and I talk a lot. You mentioned Ozzie Smith, about the need of having those Cardinal greats back on the field to really help guide this young team. Who did you kind of take notice of that did a really good job of that down in Jupiter?
Well, I think the obvious is we already have seen John Jay and Daniel Descalso there. They're with the staff. Now they bring back Yadier Molina. So now you've got a lot of those guys from the 2011 World Series who can speak to their experience. But what's so neat, and we are going to see Adam Wainwright, we're going to see more guys they alluded to coming back and being part of this organization. But Ozzie said point blank to me, this is what it's all about. This is what's so important. If you want to develop your young players, you need to have people around that understand the tradition behind the organization. Chaim Bloom saying, yeah, sure, I'm the new person in this building. There's new facilities, new technology, new everything, it feels like. But at the same time, this is still the St. Louis Cardinals. There's still an understanding of what the tradition is. Now you need to have guys who can bring that in. Ali Marmol even understands that so well. So having him be part of this movement to bring guys back like a Yadier Molina, I think is incredible, because that gets guys to buy in and understand the Cardinal way still here, looks a little different, but we can, as a group, they say, get back to that way.
Tamar, when we would walk into the clubhouse last year, even with those veterans here, you could tell that Brendan Donovan was the leader. He was the guy that welcomed young players in. He was the guy that made plays in the field. He was the guy that, if a guy was down, he would go over and be at his locker. Is there somebody now on this team that you kind of look at as somebody who could take ownership of this clubhouse or grab onto that leadership role?
Totally by committee at this point. I even thought about it. I asked two questions. First, where does leadership come from? Second, what do you define as a successful season in this new youth rebuild movement? Well, the thing is, even asking, and Alec Burleson, Jacob Sersosimo was able to be down there as well, and he asked that question. And he said point blank, it's not like we don't have guys who understand what it means to play a full big league season. You got a Mason Wynn, you got a Victor Scott. Alec Burleson has done literally everything, so he can speak to that experience. But when it comes to a leader and a voice, it needs to be collective, because if it's not that, okay, there's going to be adversity this season. We know that already going in. So who's going to help bring them together? I think it has to be a collective in order to say, all right, we're facing this adversity, but how not to get too down on ourselves and continue to fight back and punch back is going to be the big way that we're going to see growth this year.
In the return from that Donnie deal, the big name, at least, that fans got excited about was Jurangelo St. Joe. And you sat down with him. The conversation was excellent, by the way. But there was, I'm sure there were other things embedded within that conversation that didn't make the airwaves. What's something that you can share that you kind of like held on to, like, there was so much good stuff and this just didn't make the cut?
Like, does he write left-handed or right-handed?
Yeah,
oh
like
man,
stuff like
I should
that.
have asked that. Well, I think what's so cool is the reason that he does pitch and throw from both sides is because of his dad, he said. So of course he's that natural lefty, but he throws harder with his right. And he's a guy who I just exudes confidence, which is really cool to see from a younger guy and someone who also was really, really loyal. We were able to talk to his head coach from his Mississippi State days, and he said, okay, I was a little nervous. You know, he gets drafted by a team, and now he's being told he's going to the St. Louis Cardinals away from that team that drafted him, and being that loyal guy, is that difficult? Well, I asked him about it, and he goes, yeah, but the Cardinals organization is a historic one. It's one that I'm excited to be a part of, and I felt very welcomed here. And there are a lot of smiles. Of course, this is spring training. Everyone's smiling a lot. Everyone's optimistic. So I'm not going to sit here and say this is going to be the full season of how people are feeling, but Durangelo St. is a name you're definitely going to want to know. I think he's a unicorn, guys. Like this is an
Cool.
exciting part of what the organization can do is help build this new next wave of Cardinals.
So when I was a kid, I did everything left-handed. And like in second grade, teacher came to me and said, you know, Randy, we're living in a right-handed world. And they literally did everything they could to make me right-handed. So the only things I do left-handed now, and I threw everything. I did everything left-handed when I was a kid. I eat and write left-handed, but everything else I do right-handed. And I think that I would still be pitching in Major League Baseball if they had not changed me.
Yeah, or that ankle injury that you had in 4th grade.
Oh yeah, well that too, yeah.
But the thing is, what I think is cool is that, yes, even though he is stronger from the right side, that the Cardinals want to see what he can do and allow him to throw from both sides, even if it's just throwing bullpen with the left hand and switching, and that's what I saw in spring training. Ollie was very clear with me. He said, I want to get to know him as a human before I make a decision on how we're going to use him. So I think that's a really good and important piece to note too, is before they make a whole plan for him, let's get to know this guy. And that, I think, it shows what they want to do with this new movement of get to know guys at a deeper level, get to know the human side of the baseball, and then let's determine what they can do.
Tamar, you had a great conversation with Matthew Liberatore, who really established himself last year as a major leaguer. What's the thing that he can do, or what does he have that allows him to take that next step and become a front of the rotation guy?
Well, I think if we talk about the human side of baseball too, I think it comes down to the confidence as well, and that's something that Ollie Marmol said is what he's seen grow over the last couple of years. We talk about this is your spot or your position to lose. I think we very well could see Matthew Liberatore as the opening day starter, and we did see a good outing from him in that first spring training game. So I think that he is a guy who's dialed in, locked in. Of course, he's still a young guy. Even talking to Nolan Gorman, though, who is friends with Libby, and they're in Arizona together. They work out together, and they both have these conversations of, it's just an everyday thing of them talking about how they can improve and what their goals are and what they want to do. It's not like they sit down and write down the goals, but at the same time, they are always communicating with each other. I think you gotta be a leader and a voice to be able to be in that position, and he's really growing into that.
You said Ozzie was most excited to see JJ. Most fans, as you said, are probably most excited to see JJ Weatherholt start opening day at second base. Who are you most excited to see in 2026?
I have to say JJ as well, because I really think what we're seeing right now in terms of the infield, which this is of course before Ramon Urias came into the mix, and we don't know how that's going to play, but it was Alec Burleson at first, it was JJ Weatherholt at second, Mason Winn at shortstop, of course, and Nolan Gorman at third base, and from when I was there at spring training. So I'm interested to see how that infield shakes out. JJ Weatherholt is a guy who is the Texas League MVP last year. He's the Cardinals Minor League Player of the Year last year. He has all of the means necessary to have a great year, a great season start on opening day. And at the same time, he's someone I think has also grown into his confidence, and he's showing more personality, and he's gaining that. And I think that's really important too, is if you can come into big league camp and say, this is my spot to lose, this is what I have been set out to do and what last year helped me get to, that's what I'm most excited to see. But also, if you're talking about a Mason Winn, a guy who's a face of the franchise, he's a guy who wanted to grow his game on the offensive side. I want to see how that shakes out. We already saw it defensively. Can he even, 3 errors all year last year?
Amazing.
That's unreal.
Is that good?
Unreal. So how can he even improve his game?
All right, opening day, March 26th. The Cardinals have a 1-run lead heading into the 9th inning. Who pitches that 9th inning? Who's the closer?
And you're going to hate when I say this, but I think it's by committee. Because here's the thing is, Riley O'Brien is a guy that I would have said, okay, I think that he could be the closer right now dealing with a calf injury. Can't play in the WBC, which is something that he really wanted to do. And we talked about that a couple weeks ago. So that's a major bummer for him. But you got Jojo Romero, Sponson. Ryan Stanek, I will say, is a fun personality in that clubhouse. I was able to have a great conversation with him about his name, about everything. He is a veteran now, and he's like, this is weird. I've not been the oldest person.
Tell the name story.
Okay, the name story. This is really cool. Okay, so he grew up a Cardinals fan. His family all built with Cardinals fans. He was born in St. Louis. Now, he's named after a very predominant Cubs Hall of Famer National Baseball Hall of Famer. And of course, do you remember the Sandberg game? Ryan Sandberg?
I'm gonna plug my ears. I remember it, but I don't want you to share it.
Yeah, so Sandberg, of course, is the iconic Cub, and his family's just fans of baseball, which I think is really neat because that is what we see across Cardinals Nation as well. People just love baseball and know everything about it, are knowledgeable about it. So they wanted to name their son Ryan. They wanted to spell it like Ryan Sandberg, and I think that's a neat story. But he's a guy who was drafted by Chaim Bloom in Tampa. Now he's here with Chaim Bloom with the Cardinals, and I think he has a lot of experience just being with other incredible talent that he can bring in to his role with the Cardinals now. So we'll see what he can do.
By the way, I want to ask you about Chaim and Rob Cerfolio and Ollie because they had decided in Seattle, for example, that Senja was going to be a right-hander. They were taking left-handedness away from him. Obviously, with the last administration here, it didn't appear as if they were going to give a guy like Ivan Herrera an opportunity to catch. He tells them, I want to catch, and they say, okay, well, you be you, and we're going to see how you do there. I really like the approach that they're taking here, that they're allowing the player to determine what they want to be before the player physically tells them that he can't or he can.
And that's the thing, when you ask Youngry versus Youngrier, I think no one was hungrier than Ivan Herrera. He sat down with me in the little two-shot chair that we had set up on the complex, and he's like, I want to catch. I am a catcher. And he has the drive and the hunger in his eyes. That's something you want to see that from a player. You want to see the drive and determination in a guy who, okay, he already recognized the elbow was an issue for him. Now let's see with the correction what he can do. But I really appreciate how both the front office and the staff, Ollie Marmol said it too, we want to get to know the guys. We want to understand and hear from them and then make a determination of who's going to be best fit for that position. But this is the year to do it.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you don't have those veterans that you have to play every single day. You now have, okay, everything's wide open. Let's see what guys can do with opportunity. So with any year you're going to allow people to test things out and work on development, this is the year to do that.
Which is why I feel like these players are playing pressureless.
Yes.
I really do believe that nobody's going to lose a spot. I mean, they might lose a spot in general, but no one's going to be off this team or traded just because they're not performing all that well. You mentioned the two-shot. You talked to so many people. The work you did was fantastic down at spring training.
Thank you.
What was your favorite storyline of the spring?
Oh, my favorite storyline or favorite interview? That's hard.
I'll let you do both if you'd like.
Okay, well, I would say, first of all, the favorite interview, being a St. Louis girl, of course, was the Yadier Molina
Were your palms
sit-down
sweaty
interview.
afterward?
Honestly, we're just humans talking ball. So that's the
great.
thing. So I don't get nervous for that, but I respect him to the fullest extent, and I found it really intriguing and very appreciative that he was able and willing to sit down with me. But the fact that Yadier Molina, a World Series catcher, a future Hall of Famer, is willing to come down to spring training and recognize, okay, he told me his role is, A, I'm going to be in a couple series in St. Louis because that were with the Cardinals, with the big league team. That's what he did last year, invited by manager Ollie Marmol. But I'm also going to be working in the minor leagues and working with the development of catchers, which is the most important when you're talking about a rebuild development year. Get Yadier Molina with those catchers to see what they can do. And I think, interesting storyline. I did find it interesting. Why now? And now he understands and is all about this rebuild. He's also told us that he wants to manage in the future, but I think this is a really good foundation and step before he leaves for the WBC Team Puerto Rico. He's with the Cardinals, helping to develop them, and it was all smiles out there. So that was awesome. Also, understanding and knowing that Ozzie Smith presented Mason Wynn with the Gold Glove, I was able to ask about that. Mason Wynn, obviously the youngest Cardinal to ever win a Gold Glove. That's his first of many. So it was just neat to see just the relationships build there, because if you can have a young guy like Mason Wynn take after Ozzie Smith, learn from him, understand and be willing to grow, knowing he's so young, he's doing amazing things, but he's young. So I think that's a great way to show, okay, these guys are willing to lean in to maybe some discomfort, have those tough conversations, and grow because of it.
Yep. Yadier Molina, Team Puerto Rico. Tamar Sher, Team The Fight.
Yep, always. She's always on deck, too.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Great to see you. Thank you. That's Tamar. And don't forget, we've got great coverage of the Cardinals in 2026. 8 spring training games. We've got those regular season games. Plus, after pretty much every Cardinal game, we'll have a condensed 1-hour show called Fastball. So you can watch yesterday's Cardinal game in an hour if you want to. It's all going to be here during the season on Matrix Midwest. Coming up in the list, the Billikens left the benches on Friday night. Our favorite bench-clearing brouhahas of all time next in the fight. Emotions ran high at Chaffetz for the second straight year with SLU and VCU, leading to players being ejected and fines being handed out by the A-10. It had us thinking about the most memorable brawls over the years, which is today's list. And I'm going to get things started with my number 3, and I think around the country this would probably be everybody else's number 1, but we're in St. Louis. But I'm going to start with the Malice at the Palace. This was unbelievable. November 19th, 2004, in the final minute of a game between the Pacers and the Pistons at Detroit. A set 2 between Ben Wallace and Ron Artest started this, and just watch how it gets started in a violent fashion. Boom! Ron Artest. Okay, you got to see Ron Artest's response here, because this is just unreal. Okay, so you got a big brouhaha going. You got a big fight. What's Ron Artest going to do? He's just going to relax. He's just going to lay on the scorer's table. Everybody else is fighting. This is a fight that he was the first guy to start fighting in. And he's just going to take it easy there. Well, eventually what happens is some fan decides, you know what, I'm going to throw some ice or some water or some beer on Ron Artest. He's just taking a nap. He was just involved in a little fight. He said, I'm worn out here. You guys can fight. I'm going to take it easy here. But wait for the beer to be thrown, because Ron Artest, he's a sleeping giant, literally sleeping, and a giant. Okay, so Ben Wallace says, oh, come on, man. And here we go. There's Ron. Somebody threw a beer on him, and he is going to wail on this guy. There's more beer on Ron Artest. This lasted for about 15 minutes, and it changed the league. But it's still the wildest fight between players and fans in NBA and probably in sports history. Obviously, the Blues going into the stands in Philadelphia is right there, but very few things in sports fights match the Malice at the Palace in 2004.
Especially when you make a 30 for 30 on that,
yeah.
And people everywhere know that story. There are stories that predate this one that, had athletes go into the seats. I'm actually going to tease one of mine right here that you'll see in a moment. But this was, as you said, the most iconic.
Well, and how perfect that it was at the Palace at Auburn Hills, because Malice at the Palace is absolutely perfect.
It's a great name. I actually forgot that Artest was laying on the scorer's table.
Isn't that great?
That detail I forgot. Yeah. I knew that it was, like you said, a cup of beer probably that came flying onto the floor, but I don't remember him relaxing while everybody else was pushing and shoving.
Pretty funny.
All right, my number 3. This is fresh on the mind because I watched an interview about this brawl just a few days ago, but Bryce Harper was on Bussin' with the Boys, and his battle with Hunter Strickland came up.
Had a situation with the pitcher to where there's kind of some beef, and then you've taken him yard. You give him like a Kurt Signetti.
I think our biggest one was probably me and Strickland, but I think that was so overplayed. I don't even think that should have happened. I mean, it was 6 years later after it happened, and then he drilled me, and then we fought, and then it was over. That was crazy though, because he's a big boy. Yeah. And so I'm running out there halfway. I'm like, oh crap, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I'm committed now.
You know what I'm saying? I can't just run to first base now.
Oh, you caught him.
Yeah, he snuck right there.
He duffed me, man. Right when I came up to get over top, he duffed me, and it kind of went sideways.
Now, when you're going up to bat right there, are you thinking to yourself,
he's going to drill me?
You knew it.
Yeah, I told Jay to watch the helmet throw, though.
Damn, you guys are going.
Samardzija ran in right there. Jeff Samardzija? Yeah, he runs in trying to kill me. He hits Morse. Watch this.
Oh, that's
bang!
Oh, receiver from Notre Dame, 2-bar running back.
So when you're running out there, are you thinking to yourself,
I'm
how
thinking,
fast can my boys get
you
out here
got
and
it.
get my back?
Yeah. But the thing is Strick told them before the game, I know this for a fact. Hey, if I face Harper in this series, I'm going to get him. You guys need to stay back. That's why Posey sat back there and didn't stop me.
Gotcha.
And so you see Brandon Crawford and all these guys like sitting back and whatever. So look at Posey. You see Posey back there?
And also, hey, Strickland, show him put that glove down again. That was hard. Watch this. Oh, you want to do it? All right. Let's go.
He's a big boy, dude. Yeah, he's a big boy.
That's ready for smoke.
No doubt. I
Throw
think
this
this should
helmet.
happen more often in baseball because I think it would eliminate guys throwing at each other. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like hockey. Like,
Isn't it great, Randy, when you can hear the whole story from the man himself?
Oh, it's so great. And he has a great personality to relay exactly what happened. And I hadn't even realized the Samardzija and Morse part of it, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, they came running in and barreled each other.
Friendly fire. I love this. All right, my number 2, and a lot of fans will remember this, the Cards and Giants in 1986. One of the all-timers. Cardinals are up 10-2 in the 5th, and Vince Coleman tried to score. He was at third base on a short pass ball, but he was tagged out. In the 7th inning, the score now 10-4, Giants pitcher Frank Williams got thrown out when he hit Coleman with a pitch. Well, that's when it happened. All right, this was a real brouhaha. Now, look at the old school video. But you're going to see the Cardinals skipper, Whitey Herzog, get into it with Giants manager Roger Craig. And Whitey stayed hot for about 10 minutes after this. Okay, so it looks like baseball fight, everything's under control, the players taking care of each other, but the managers are the ones that got things going here. Okay, so yeah, you got Kevin Mitchell going a little bit crazy, and right here, you've got Roger Craig, and there's Whitey. Okay? And Whitey's yelling at him. You know what he's saying? He's saying, hey, you guys promise not to hit home runs anymore. We promise not to run anymore. Because Craig was mad that the Cardinals were actually trying to score a run with their legs rather than trying to hit it out of the ballpark. Well, Herzog was fantastic in this. And the two teams didn't like each other. And we saw that again in '87 in the playoffs. And we saw it again in '88 when Will Clark ran into Ozzie Smith and Jose Oquendo, and they had a big set to a bench-clearing brawl. This one, though, Mike Krukow got thrown to the ground, the Giants pitcher, and he had to go on the DL with the bad shoulder, and he was really never the same after that. And for all of Craig's complaining about this fight, the Giants had Candy Maldonado at the plate in a 10-7 game as the tying run in the ninth. So Whitey was exactly right.
That is awesome. Now, you said it was just a back and forth that seemed pretty friendly. You think some few choice words were thrown into those sentences?
There's absolutely no doubt about it. And the Cardinals weren't thrilled with Will Clark. Will Clark and Ozzie didn't like each other an awful lot. And so I think it started there. And then the Giants were home run hitters and the Cardinals stole bases, but the Giants didn't like it that the Cardinals stole bases.
Well, Randy, one of the greatest videos I ever came across as a kid when I first discovered YouTube was the Rangers-Bruins brawl of 1979 that mostly happened off the ice.
Little thing going on here between Beaton and Secord. As the fans are now getting involved, as O'Reilly is out into the stands, and this is going to be something. O'Reilly's into the stands fighting with a Ranger fan, and all the Bruins are going over. Gilbert is in there, Peter McNabb.
Now watch McNabb,
stands.
number 8.
McNabb's going up to grab somebody about 7 or 8 rows up.
Now, it looked like the other fan had the sweater over O'Reilly's head, which was pretty good.
And here's Mike Milbury up there pulling off the shoe. The cop trying to pull Milbury away. And obviously he's not doing a very good job of that. The shoe gets taken away. Imagine, not only are you sitting up in the upper bowl for a game like this, but you're watching the Bruins go over the glass at Madison Square Garden to totally take out fans. Yeah, you can't do that anymore because I don't even think you can get over the glass.
Yeah, and I get that you're from Boston, and they're tough in Boston. They got Southies in Boston. But you don't want to go into the stands in New York. Somebody there is tougher than you are, and you don't know who it is, so you better not do it.
Yeah, but hockey players don't care. They're just out there to hit
they
somebody.
Obviously didn't. All right, here's my number 1. And this was just awesome.
Did this on purpose.
It was the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. The Blues and the Blackhawks, the back end of a home-and-home on back-to-back nights, St. Patrick's Day of 1991. 6 players got game misconducts in the first period, and in the second, 7 more got tossed, including the Blues' Scott Stevens and the Hawks' Dave Manson. So think about this. You have 36 skaters at the start of the game, 18 on each side, right? In the second period, you had lost 13 of those. So you had about half of the skaters by the third period that you'd normally have in a game. Now, here's the cool part about this. Yeah, bench clearing. The Hawks had like 8 guys on the ice. The Blues had like 6. By the way, Jeff Brown falls on his guy here. But watch number 2 for the Blues and number 3 for Chicago get together, because this is really what it's all about. And this is another thing that we miss in the NHL. Let's listen to Ken Wilson.
Each other last night, they're going to let them go. The 3 most feared words in hockey. Main event, center ice.
Okay, and Scotty did not have the best performance here against Dave Manson.
They're going. Oh, Stevens really gets him with a left, but John Manson can fight too. They both landed some punches.
Okay, so Stevens loses the fight. But here's the thing. Center ice, all by themselves, and nobody was, the linesmen were standing back and just let him go. And that was a bad one for Scotty Stevens right there. But it was an epic battle. It was a bench-clearing brawl. And like we said, 13 of the 36 skaters thrown out of the game, got game misconducts. And of course, 2 of those were Dave Manson and Scott Stevens. Oh, by the way, Kelly Chase got one here in this game too.
I want to see them all in the box with the kiss cam. All right, my number 1, Randy. Are in-state rivalries the greatest of rivalries?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there are a few like Duke UNC, Michigan State, Kansas K-State definitely can make a case for the greatest, especially when emotions get the best of you. Like in 2020, when K-State clearly had no chance of winning, KU was dribbling the ball out, and then this happened.
And that'll do it, this version.
Denied.
To finish.
Okay. They didn't take a liking to that.
Now the bench is empty, just unnecessary. Yep.
Now, I want you to pay attention, though, because there's 2 things I will never understand with this. One, that you steal the ball away from a dribbler, like we saw SLU VCU. And the second, the chair grab, right? Like, there was a KU player grabbed a chair off toward where the student section is and was about to hit somebody over the head with it. Yeah, that would probably be felony assault if you actually did that.
Unless it was pro wrestling.
Yeah, you're right. So great restraint, at least in college basketball, to drop it in that moment.
That is amazing. I love that. And sports needs that sort of emotion. We need players that are that competitive, that not only are they willing to play the game hard, but they're willing to play a different game hard, the toughness game, the boxing game, the UFC game, the pro wrestling game. That's what we've seen here tonight.
It's great to have hatred within the state. It makes for good competition.
Yep. Hey, coming up, we're going to compete. We're going to build a parlay. We're going to have some risky business next in the fight. Every show, we like to build you a parlay. And yes, on the last show, I did try some table tennis. That didn't go particularly well.
That's okay.
I'm going to get something I feel like I know a little bit more about, and that is the PGA Tour. Now, this is going to be an interesting one this weekend because as we look at the Cognizant Classic, no Scotty Scheffler. He's a favorite every week.
Right.
Adam Scott is a favorite here and a logical favorite. Now, do I think he's going to win? Yeah, I don't know. But I think he's going to finish top 5, and he's plus 380. I think that's a really nice bet.
I think so, too. I always say it, too. It's hard to pick a winner.
Yeah,
so the fact that you got there is a really good play. I'm surprised you didn't go Brooks Koepka here, though.
I don't
Randy.
like what I've seen so far.
You know what I have liked to see, though? And he played really well until the last day, was Max Homa. Yeah. I think Max Homa is due for a top 10 finish.
Okay.
I think he played very well at the Genesis, so well that he could make those minor tweaks and make the correction that we desperately need. And we can parlay this because we have a top 5 and a top 10. I actually think you can parlay 2 top 5s if you really wanted to.
Okay.
But for this, we will do it this way. And I don't know where my notepad popped up.
By the way, in St. Louis, rather than calling it the Genesis, should we call it the Hennesis? Because we had Hennesis Cabrera?
Hey, anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
All right.
So we're plus 2108 here.
$100 would win you $2,000 on this play, and I would show you if I could, but I don't know where our no
Go
bet
Adam
is.
Scott, go Max Homa. That's what we're looking forward to. All right, that is Build a Parlay. Coming up, we've got story time with Uncle Randy, plus today in sports history. Here in the fight. Time for story time with Uncle Randy. Andrew is going to spin for a decade, and then we're going to spin for, got the 2010s,
Yep.
and now we need a sport.
All right, 2010s. I predicted 2000s.
Okay, you said 2000s baseball. 2010s.
I was just off.
Football.
So close. I like 2010 football, though.
Okay.
A lot of good stories.
So back in 2000 and hold on, let me make sure I get the right year here. This would be 2000. Mark Bulger was the quarterback. The St. Louis Rams were playing in Detroit, and it must have been the 2008 season. And Steven Jackson, by himself, basically beat the Detroit Lions. The Rams would have finished with the first pick in the draft if they would not have won this game. And I believe this was the year, if I'm not mistaken, that the Lions finished 0-16. But Steven Jackson just took over. He would not allow the Rams to lose the game. And I wanted him to lose because I wanted him to have the first pick in the draft. Not that it made an awful lot of difference the way the Rams were drafting at that time. But here we go. We already watch Steven Jackson in this game. It was one of the most epic performances. And you talk about a diamond in trash. I mean, he was a great, great player. And Tyler Klaus, our director, producer, is unbelievable. Steven won this game by himself. You have 53 guys on each team, and Steven won this game by himself over the Lions.
Look at the score, 3-2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it's
3-2.
two really bad football teams. But Steven was unbelievable. And Steven, by the way, should be in the Hall of Fame. He just landed in the wrong spot. If Steven would have landed with the Steelers rather than the Rams, he would be in the Hall of Fame right now. And a great guy and an unbelievable performance on this date. And that's your... there you go. That's your story from Uncle Randy.
Here's a fun fact for you, too. Kyron Williams, product of St. Louis, his favorite player growing up.
Was
that
number
man
39.
right there.
There you go. All right. On this date in sports history, 1988, a committee of Chicago aldermen voted 7-2 to, this is 1988, to allow the Cubs to install lights at Wrigley Field and play up to 18 night games a year. The Cubs had feared losing the 1990 All-Star Game, as well as future postseason and World Series games, if lights weren't installed. So they played their first night game at Wrigley on August 9th, 1989. That's the guy that got to hit the plunger right there to turn the lights on at Wrigley Field. And, of course, they still play night games there. Did you realize it was 1989 before they played night games at Wrigley?
That is great. I can't imagine any stadium not having lights.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, some of those games in 85, 87, when they didn't have lights that were ending at dusk, 14-inning games, those were awesome. Hey, we're on every day here on Matrix Midwest and the Matrix Midwest app. We're on at 5 p.m. and 10 p.m., plus again at 7 the next morning. And don't forget, if you want to participate in the fight, log on to matrixmidwest.com, use the Carricker and Company drop-down menu and fill in the form there. And we Zoom the fight at about noon on Tuesdays, and then it airs on Wednesday. By the way, we have 7 more Cardinal spring training games in 2026. And it's great to have the Cardinals with us.
I love watching the games on Matrix. I love watching really any sporting event on Matrix, especially this show, but spring training baseball where you can't find it, I love watching it on Matrix.
And find the schedule at matrixmidwest.com or on the Matrix Midwest app, which you should have downloaded by now. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. For Andrew Rogers and our outstanding director, Tyler Klaus, I'm Randy Carricker. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.